It's your man Delvin. Welcome to Delvin's room. And I need to know something today. Why do black women have it so hard in pop spaces? This is the topic that came up over the weekend when I was talking to my cousins about black women in music. And we came to the conclusion that black women have a very difficult time when they either enter pop spaces or they're initiated in pop spaces. Now, this is a very layered conversation, but I'm going to try to break it down as best as I can. And I'm going to start with the perfect example of this. Whitney Houston. A lot of people would think Whitney started off as an R&B artist because we associate Whitney with R&B a lot. But what a lot of people wouldn't know, Whitney started off as a pop artist. You know, her biggest hits, those first three albums, Whitney Houston, Whitney, and I'm Your Baby Tonight, those are pop albums. You know, she was kind of centered as the female version of Michael Jackson, which Michael Jackson was the king of pop, right? And Whitney was doing very well, doing big hits, but she was called a sellout for making pop music, right? And this is the difficulty that a lot of black women have in pop spaces, because it's not necessarily a black audience in the pop world. You know, a lot of times black artists are associated with hip hop, R&B, a little bit more back then jazz. And so anytime you're doing something different, it's kind of like you in this weird space, and that's what Whitney was in. Everybody's saying, well, why is she making these pop songs? Why is she not doing the R&B songs? And people in her own community was calling her a sellout, and she didn't do nothing to sell out. All she did was make music, right? But this is where the confusion comes in at, because it's almost like music is segregated to a certain degree, right? But Whitney was a standout because of her voice was so beautiful. She sold so many records, right? So it was kind of hard for her. Eventually, she crossed over more into the R&B world, you know? A lot of artists, they usually come into the game R&B and switch over pop. You know, if they get popular enough and they have power in the game. But Whitney was the exact opposite. She came in pop and left R&B, right? Because her voice was just so powerful, she could make great R&B records. But Whitney didn't deserve the title of a sellout, and she didn't do anything wrong. I think, you know, Whitney always felt a way about that, and maybe that's, you know, I don't want to get too deep into why certain things happen. But, you know, that had to be very hurtful, because all Whitney was doing was making great music, you know. And I noticed a lot of things with the black girls in pop. They're usually very younger. You know, Whitney she was at a tender age of 16, 17, 18, 19 when a lot of this stuff was happening. Another example, an interesting example on this one is SZA. SZA, she does R&B. She's based in R&B. But is SZA really an R&B artist? I mean, but SZA started off as doing this kind of alternative thing. You know what I'm saying? We couldn't really put it in a spectrum. But now we see it as like alternative R&B. But she had to go R&B. Do you see what I'm saying here? She had to connect herself with R&B. She couldn't just be like, I'm a pop artist. You know what I'm saying? She really didn't get accepted and blow up in the mainstream until she came out and said, hey, I got some R&B in me. You know what I'm saying? Which I'm glad she does. But should she have to have done that? Should she have to have gone R&B? You know what I'm saying? Could she not just been accepted as a pop artist? And that's where it's at. Another artist, very interesting one, Coco Jones. Coco Jones started off as a pop girl. You know what I'm saying? In Coco Jones' situation is an example of when the artist is younger, they're pop, and then they go R&B. Because that's exactly what Coco did. When she was younger, trying to figure it out, she was making these pop songs. But soon as she matured in age, she started making R&B songs. So, is Coco naturally an R&B? I mean, actually an R&B or pop artist? She might be pop, you know what I'm saying? But she's doing R&B because that's where her audience is at. You know what I'm saying? That's the people that can relate to her, you know? Another great example, and I'm going to dive into this one. Holly Bailey, the Bailey sisters, period. Chloe and Holly are having a tough time getting really deep into the music game. And partially that's because they're seen as those Disney Channel young girls, you know what I'm saying? Pop artists. And do we have an audience for that? After a certain age, the audience kind of is not there no more, so they have to go R&B, and I think that's what Chloe's having a difficulty doing, because maybe she's not naturally an R&B artist, right? I mean, she has a good voice, but maybe she doesn't naturally do R&B. Should she be forced to do R&B, something that she isn't naturally good at? You know what I'm saying? Or something I won't even say she's not naturally good at it, something that she doesn't naturally do. You know what I'm saying? I've heard Chloe's music, and I think she's just in that space, and it's just one of those societal things where it's like it's not really a black audience in the pop world. You know what I'm saying? So you have to kind of be accepted by a white audience in the pop world. And don't get it twisted, Chloe's a black girl. Like she doesn't really try to sell herself as anything other than that. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Haley. Haley is having the same problem. You know what I'm saying? Where she's now being forced to do R&B. But if you listen to a lot of her music before and a lot of her singing before, you can tell she was a pop artist first. A lot of these girls, a lot of black women go through these problems. You know what I'm saying? 7th Street, the list can go on. Nivea, you know what I'm saying? Where these girls make great music, but who do you market it to? And why is it like that? You know what I'm saying? Even deeper, I don't even want to just blame the fans. You know what I'm saying? Is things just being transmitted like that, where a black woman has to do R&B or hip hop? She can't do pop rock. You know what I'm saying? The only way she can do that is to be accepted by a white audience, and sometimes you won't be accepted by a white audience, and you want your black audience. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those tough spaces. You know what I'm saying? Another one that really going through that, and she had a lot of personal issues too, where things just is not going the way that I believe she wants it to. Normani was supposed to be the next big thing, you know what I'm saying, musically. And she's a great artist. That's the thing. She's a great artist. This is no knock to her. It's just that she's in those pop spaces, you know what I'm saying? Because she's not an R&B artist. She can, they try to put her in that space, but you can't say Normani's R&B. Now, a person that did it very unusual, but she did it very successful, was Doja Cat. Doja Cat actually came out, even though her look was pop, her music was very hip hop and R&B. Doja Cat was rapping and singing to R&B beats. If you could listen, even if you listen to her albums now, you could hear the R&B in it. You know what I'm saying? But her look has always been pop. That's the interesting thing about Doja Cat, which I think that's why it works very well for her. She has like this pop punk rock, this fashionista type thing going on, where it's just, it's different, it's alternative. So the music represents that, right? Even though it's based in R&B and hip hop, she adds the pop to it. But it's just interesting how many black women have found it very difficult to navigate in pop spaces.